So now let's complete this recycler view first and kind of add some dummy data to it so we can understand how it's looking and how does it feel. So for that I want you to create a new data model. We have already created a package here. If you don't know how to create a package, just right click, new and package, name it data model, and on data model right click. You want to add a new class and we will name it request data model. Now what does this data model will store is it will store the message so we want to create this particular layout, and this contains a message and it also contains an image. Along with that we have this function which is call whoever has posted this request, and a share button for this request so we can share the request as it is on any social media or WhatsApp. Now for this this contains some data, and to hold this data we need to create a Java data model. So we have string, we have image, so this will be image URL since it's going to be some URL from where we are fetching this image. It's not always going to be this red flame. The user can upload their own image. For that we need an image URL, and then we have these buttons. So for now we are not going to go into integrate details of these buttons and add those details to our data model. We're just gonna have these two data fields for testing, and press alt enter and constructor, select both of these and create a constructor, and then have getters and setters methods for both of the fields. Also make them private. This is not necessary but a common and good practice. Now we need to create an adapter for this RecyclerView, because see, we have a Java data model and we want to have an UI over here, a sort of card which will display our information. So for that we need a middleware, a class, an adapter in Java terms, which will pass one data type to another data type and kind of adapts, as the name suggests, the Java object to this XML layout. Also we'll have to create this particular card in our application. Here it doesn't have any shadow or anything. Let's add some shadow, because we are going to use card view and it's going to look something like this. Okay, now let's come here and create an adapter for this. Okay, before creating an adapter we need to create the layout, because the adapter needs this layout. We are going to call it request item layout. It's a linear layout here, but inside we want card view. Card view will have match parent and wrap content and a margin of 4 dB. This should look like a card soon, and now let's add a layout here. Let's first take a look at this layout. So we have an image and we have a message, then we have these two buttons. Okay, so I'll be using relative layout here. And it will be match parent and wrap content. It will simply have another card view inside it, and you will know why. The width I want is something the half of the screen, so around, let's say, 200 dp, and the height will be also 200 dp, and it will have some corners. Of 10 dp as well. Inside this we will have our image view, and it will wrap everything. Now it's going to match the height and width of our card view. We have to give this an ID. I will call it just image. And an important thing that we need to set is Android scale type, and this is going to be with XY. So what it will do is, here you see this curved corners. It will fill this image and it will kind of give that complete effect as is the image itself is curved and having rounded corners. So that's what I want to do there. The source file for this, let's have logo. Okay, that's fine, and kind of want border to this. For that, let's try doing this. Right click on drawable, create a new drawable file, call it border background. Corners we want, no, we don't want this. We want stroke with a width of 1 dp and a color of black. Let's try this. it's not coming there. And if we try it here, okay, here we have it. And I want to give it corners of 10 dp. Okay, so the image will overlap and everything, but we want to have some padding as well. But let's say we want some margin. Alright, and let's give it an ID card image, and right after it I want a text view with a width of match parent and a height of wrap content, but I want it to be at the end of card image, and align the top with also card image, and align the bottom as well to the card image. Okay, so this is our text view now. Let's add some text to it, and for now this, see, okay, it works fine. It's black, and yeah, it's black. Text color black, and text size probably is going to be 16 sp, or let's make it 14 sp for now. Okay, that seems okay. And after that we need a black divider line like this here. For that we will simply use view, and it will be width like this, and its background is going to be black. The height is going to be 1 dp, and it's going to stay below card image with a margin at top of my dp. And let's give this some ID, black line. So here you have your black line like this. Also, let's give it some margin at bottom. Yeah, it looks just like we wanted. And now we have kind of a divider here. We will use the image view for these icons, and kind of have a fixed height and width for them. Call button, and align it to parent end with a margin of 8 dp. Let's import the icon for this. so it will come somewhere here. Now let's bring it down of this black line. Okay, and it has started to look what we wanted it to be look like. And another thing that we want is a share button. Let's import that as well. Okay, so it looks how we wanted it, and yeah, so now let's use some image. So we will be using this image as a placeholder, and also want to see how this looks. For that we are going to use this image, and now it's time to create the adapter. For that I want you to create a new package first, so everything is organized and looks good. And we want to call this class, let's call it request adapter. Okay, and now I have an example adapter here. This is the standard template that I guess you'll be following wherever you use RecyclerViews, and this is not going to change. So just having a copy of this is going to be helpful. I'll share the link in the description, and yes, copy this and paste it here. Now let's rename this again, request adapter, and we need to import RecyclerView and view holder, and the list is going to be of request data model. We also need to import the list class. We need context, request adapter, and here the data model is going to be of request data model as well. We need to also import annotations, and everything else, and here the ID goes, the layout that you just created, that goes here, request item layout. And now I'll explain things to you. So we are extending a class that is defined under RecyclerView package adapter, and it accepts a view holder. So here we have two fields. First is context, and we have a list of request data models. Since we want to display a list of items like this, then it makes some sense to have a list actually of those data items. and we have a constructor for this class. Then we have on create view holder, which returns a view holder. This is where each and every item is going to be created and later inflated. So this is a method defined here, and we are overriding it so we can inflate a custom item. And we have some other methods as well on bind view holder. This is where we are going to set the data values for each and every item in this item layout, because each and every time an item is inflated, this method is going to be called. So suppose this card comes on the screen. For this this method is going to be called. We have the view holder, which is sent to this method. We have the position of this item in the list, and we have the data models list from which we can fetch the data values using this position. You'll see, you'll understand once you use it once, and you'll get accustomed to this adapter once you have used it a couple of times. That's how I got accustomed to this. Okay, so now let's just cut here. Okay, so you will get accustomed to this adapter class once you have used it a couple of times. That's how I got used to it, and yes, now let's start doing something. And this is class view holder that you'll have in your RecyclerView adapters every time, and it extends view holder, and you can add some custom views here. So we have text view for message, we have image view for that image which the user will upload. Then we have call button and share button. Let's assign them to their proper layout files. So we did give the ID. No, we didn't. We have to give some ID to this text view. I'm going to call it just message, and we need to use this item view to find view by ID, and it's message. So okay, this class is done. We created objects of text view and image view. Then we binded these objects to their respected IDs. We have this item view which is returned from here. So this is getting inflated, and here we are finding these values and assigning them to their right objects. Now coming to this onBind view holder function or method, you can actually set the values for this text view and image views. So every time a layout is inflated, this instance of this class is passed to this onBind view holder. So this might make some sense. Once we do this, holder message dot set text, and we have the data set from which we want the current data model, and from there we wanna have the message. Okay, so for loading the images, I want you to add a new library to your app dependencies. For that, go to Glide Android. So as you can read the example, as you can read this description, an image loading caching level for Android focused on smooth scrolling. So it's a library which can load your images using URL or IDs or anything else that is possible to load. It will load using its predefined function, and it also has a caching functionality, so it can cache the images. So next time you load the image from a URL and that image is already available in the cache, then this library will use the cache rather than using the internet to load that image, so it becomes a bit faster. So to add this to your project, you need to add these two lines here, and in repositories, I guess we already have even, but let's check build.gradle on project level. Okay, we don't have Maven Central. So in your app level build.gradle file, under repositories, sorry, not here, cut it from here and paste it here. You wanna add the Maven Center to all projects, repositories. Okay, so once your Gradle build and Gradle syncs are done, you will be able to use Glide. To use that, type in glide.width. Width can be view or context or fragment activity. We have context here, so we'll use that. With context, load, and we want to load a URL into this. For that, dataset position get image URL. Then we need to set the into, which is the target of Glide to load the image, and it's going to be holder dot image view. And this is the information part, and for holder.call button dot set on click listener. We'll do this later, and same with the share button. We will implement these two things later, and this is pretty much the adapter. We won't be doing anything else in this. The UI is ready almost. Just add some padding to this text message. Of 8 dB, and now let's come back to our main activity. So in main activity we need to create an object of this RecyclerView. Let's call it RecyclerView and bind it with the XML file. So we have the list as a vertical list, and that means it's going to be a linear vertical layout. For that we will create a layout manager. So RecyclerView has introduced a new function which we didn't had in list views. It's that we can add our own layout managers with it. It gives a lot of flexibility in terms of how your layout will behave with the user interaction, because right now we only have this simple top to bottom vertical layout, but we can either have a horizontal layout also, a circular layout also, and things like that, and that's only achievable if you have a separate layout manager, and RecyclerView does that. So RecyclerView dot set layout manager, assign this layout manager. We have created a linear layout manager. The first thing is context, then we are telling it what it is it vertical or horizontal, and reverse layout is false. Reverse layout will make everything come from top to bottom. That means the last element will come at first and so on in descending orders. Okay, and yeah, that's all for the RecyclerView. And now we will create a list of request data models. So we need to have two lists, basically one in the adapter and one in the main activity from where we are calling. So we will change this list itself, and according to the changes this list will change. We will see how that's done. Firstly, I need to initialize this list, and for that just add this line. Now we can create our adapter. Request adapter. Let's initialize this request adapter. First thing it takes is the dataset, that is request data models, and next it takes context. Now let's create a method that will that we will later use to populate the home page. Populate home page. Now we need to create some dummy data models to add to this recycler view. Let's just make our own request data model. So first thing it takes is message, and next up it takes image URL. Image URL we have here, and for message let's use whatever is the content of this thing. Okay, and now let's add all this request data model multiple times to the list, so we can have more than one item and you can understand why we are using a recycler view. And for that, request data models, add request data model, and copy this line multiple times so that we have more than one data model. And after adding these, I want to remind my adapter that dataset has been changed. For that, you need to call request adapter dot notify dataset changed. This will make sure that whatever changes you made to this list are visible in the actual UI that you have created. Now let's just call this method and test our applications. So we are not getting the list here. Let's see why that. So we haven't set the adapter for this recycler view. We need to call RecyclerView set adapter after initializing the adapter and passing the adapter to this set adapter function for this recycler view. And now this should work. Let's see. So we are getting this, but we are also getting this full layout and this empty space. This is because we have not added, not set this linear layout height as wrap content. That's why it's taking up the whole screen, but you can see that we are having all the layouts, and this is what I was talking about. The image will have these curved corners if we use card view. Let's make that change and reload our application. Okay, so it works well and we have what we wanted. So that's it. So that's it for this video, guys. Thanks.